Imagine standing at the edge of history, gazing into an abyss of silence where once there was a vibrant world. The Late Bronze Age, a tapestry of thriving civilizations, abruptly unraveled, leaving behind the ghostly echoes of its grandeur. Around 1200 BCE, a sudden and catastrophic collapse swept across the Mediterranean like a shadow. The Mycenaeans, the Hittites, Ugarit, and the Egyptian New Kingdom. These were the titans of their time, and within a single generation, they vanished. What happened to these empires? The answer lies buried beneath the ashes of burnt palaces, in the abandoned ruins where life once thrived. Each site tells a tale of abrupt end, trade routes severed, writing systems forgotten, cities left in eerie silence. It was as if the ancient world had forgotten how to be. Historians have long debated the causes of this collapse, offering theories as varied as the lands they seek to explain. One theory speaks of a relentless drought, a climate shift that turned fertile lands barren and sparked famine across the region. Another whispers of earth-shaking tremors, earthquakes that toppled cities and shattered societies. Yet rebellion also plays its part in this tragic chorus, as internal struggles and civil unrest tore at the fabric of these once stable societies. And lurking on the periphery of this mystery are the enigmatic sea peoples, marauding bands whose origins remain shrouded in mystery, leaving devastation in their wake. Finally, there is the theory of systems collapse. The idea that these interconnected civilizations, reliant on one another for trade, technology, and stability, fell victim to their own complexity. A domino effect of failures, each one exacerbating the next, leading to a global unraveling. But perhaps the most compelling answer isn't found in any single cause. It lies in the intricate interplay of these forces, a perfect storm of calamities that, together, became insurmountable. It was an interconnected world undone by its own interdependence, a harrowing reminder of how fragile even the mightiest of civilizations can be. This was no mere invasion by barbarian hordes. It was a systemic crisis, a collapse that resonates with a modern eeriness. As we stand on the precipice of our own tightly coupled global systems, the lessons of the Bronze Age echo through the ages. We are left to ponder the fragility of our world today, a world as interconnected, as interdependent, and perhaps as vulnerable as that of the ancients. The Late Bronze Age collapse was not merely an end, but a profound transformation, a cautionary tale etched into the bones of history. It invites us to reflect on our own place in the ever-turning wheel of time, to consider the delicate balance we strive to maintain. And as we look back on the collapse of ancient civilizations, we are reminded that the echoes of the past may yet hold the key to understanding our future. In the twilight of the Late Bronze Age, the great powers of Egypt, the Hittites, and the Mycenaeans stood like Colossi on the world stage. Their palaces, once vibrant centers of trade and culture, now lie silent, whispering tales of a world unraveled. The archaeological silence is deafening, palace after palace, reduced to ash and ruin. Trade routes, once the lifelines of empires, severed. Writing systems, the very essence of their civilizations, forgotten in the span of a generation. The Hittites, masters of Anatolia, whose kings forged alliances and waged wars, vanished almost overnight. Their capital, Hattusa, abandoned to time, its archives buried beneath the weight of history. To the south, the Mycenaean Greeks, the builders of mighty citadels and the legendary warriors of Homeric epics, found their walls breached not by foreign invaders, but by the inexorable tide of collapse. Across the Mediterranean, in the land of the pharaohs, Egypt's new kingdom teetered on the brink. The mighty Ramses III, faced with incursions from the enigmatic sea peoples, struggled to maintain his empire's borders. The inscriptions of Medinet Habu tell of battles won, yet the internal strain was too great. What brought these civilizations to their knees? Scholars have long debated, offering theories as varied as the empires themselves. Some point to a relentless drought, a climatic shift that withered crops and sparked famine. Others suggest the earth itself convulsed, earthquakes shaking the very foundations of these ancient cities. Then there are the internal rebellions, the whispers of discontent rising from the masses. As the ruling elites clung to power, the social fabric began to tear, unraveling from within. And looming large in our imaginations are the sea peoples, mysterious marauders from the sea, whose origins and motivations remain shrouded in mystery. Yet perhaps the most compelling explanation is not one of these alone, but all of them combined, a perfect storm of calamities, each feeding into the other. This was a world undone by its own interdependence, a system so intricately woven that when one thread snapped, the whole tapestry began to unravel. The Late Bronze Age was not a simple tale of conquest. It was not a barbarian invasion, but a sophisticated system collapsing under its own weight, a cautionary tale of complexity turned against itself. The interconnected world of the great powers, once a source of strength, became their undoing. As we peer into the past, the echoes of their collapse resonate with unsettling familiarity. Our modern world, with its global networks and fragile dependencies, mirrors the ancient systems in ways we cannot ignore. The vertigo of history spins us forward, reminding us of the fragility that lies beneath the surface of our own civilization. The past, it seems, is never truly past, and the lessons it offers are as vital as ever. In the quiet that follows a storm, silence can be deafening. So it was in the decades following 1200 BCE when the once bustling centers of the ancient world fell silent. The grand palaces of the Mycenaeans, the fortified cities of the Hittites, the vibrant ports of Ugarit, and the mighty temples of Egypt, all turned to ashes and echoes. This was not just a single empire falling, but an entire interconnected web of civilizations unraveling within a generation. As archaeologists sift through the ashes, the skeletal remains of these great societies whisper tales of destruction. Palaces burned to the ground, their treasures pillaged or lost to time. The trade routes, once the veins of a vibrant economic body, were severed, leaving communities isolated and vulnerable. Writing systems, the blueprints of culture and governance, vanished, plunging regions into what some have called a dark age. What could have caused such a widespread collapse? Historians and scientists have long debated the culprits. Was it the wrath of nature, in the form of a devastating drought that withered crops and starved populations? Evidence of reduced rainfall paints a grim picture of ecological stress. Or was it the trembling earth itself, as earthquakes shattered cities and sent shockwaves through the heart of empires? Perhaps it was internal strife, as oppressed populations rose against their rulers in desperate bids for survival and change. The chaos of rebellion is palpable in the archaeological record, with signs of hastily abandoned settlements and defensive fortifications. Then there are the enigmatic sea peoples, marauding bands whose origins remain shrouded in mystery. Their invasions are etched into Egyptian records, a tale of relentless onslaught from the sea. Yet, to pinpoint a singular cause is to miss the intricate tapestry of interconnectedness that was both the strength and the Achilles heel of the Late Bronze Age. The most compelling narrative is that of systems collapse, a domino effect where the failure of one part led to the unraveling of the whole. In a world where each civilization depended on the others for resources, knowledge, and stability, the collapse of one was a catalyst for the others. This was not a barbarian invasion, but a systemic crisis, eerily modern in its complexity. It was the fragility of interdependence laid bare, a reminder that the bonds that tie us together can also be the ones that pull us apart. The vertigo of history spins us forward once more, urging us to ponder our own world, where global systems are intimately intertwined and vulnerabilities lie hidden beneath the surface. As we peer into this distant past, we see a reflection of our own world, a world where the past is never truly past, where the lessons of history are as vital as ever. The late Bronze Age collapse warns us of the dangers of ignoring the precarious balance of our interconnected existence. It leaves us with a chilling question. Are we prepared to heed its lessons, or are we destined to repeat the cycle of rise and fall? As we delve into the echoes of the past, a haunting silence greets us. A silence born of ruin, where once thriving cities now lie in ashes. The late Bronze Age, a time when civilization itself seemed to collapse into dust. In the span of a single generation, the great powers of the Mediterranean, the Mycenaeans, the Hittites, Ugarit, and the Egyptian New Kingdom, fell like dominoes, their grandeur reduced to mere whispers in the sand. The palaces, once bustling with life and ambition, are now but charred remnants. Trade routes that wove the fabric of this ancient world stand severed, and the scripts that told the stories of these peoples are forgotten. This was no ordinary fall. It was a symphony of destruction, and at its heart were the mysterious Sea Peoples. These enigmatic entities appear in the records of the time as harbingers of chaos, yet their true nature remains shrouded in mystery. Who were these Sea Peoples? Were they invaders driven by hunger and desperation, or refugees fleeing the cataclysm of their own lands? Archaeologists and historians have long debated their origins and motives. Some suggest they were a confederation of displaced groups, their movements a symptom of a world in turmoil. Others propose they were mercenaries, seizing opportunity amid the chaos. What is clear is their impact. They moved like a tempest across the Mediterranean, leaving ruin in their wake. But can we attribute the collapse solely to these elusive marauders? As we sift through the layers of time, a more intricate tapestry emerges. 5 competing theories vie for dominance, each shedding light on a piece of the puzzle. First, there is the specter of drought. Evidence of severe climate shifts suggests that prolonged dry periods may have crippled agriculture, sparking famine and unrest. Then there are the earthquakes, powerful enough to topple cities, their tremors felt across the ancient world. These natural disasters could have weakened the very foundations of society, creating fractures that were easily exploited. Within this turmoil, internal rebellions simmered. Oppressed populations, perhaps emboldened by the chaos, rose up against their rulers, further destabilizing the region. Yet, it is the Sea Peoples who capture our imagination, their movements recorded in the annals of history, their motives as fluid as the seas they traversed. And finally, there is the theory of systems collapse, a modern concept for an ancient phenomenon. The interconnectedness that once fueled prosperity became a web of vulnerability. As one pillar fell, it pulled the others down with it, creating a cascade of collapse. In truth, the most compelling answer is not one of these theories, but all of them at once. An interconnected world, undone by its own intricacies. A series of unfortunate events, each compounding the other, leading to a spiral of decline. This was not a simple barbarian invasion. It was a systemic crisis, one that echoes eerily into our present day. As we stand on the precipice of understanding, we draw parallels to our own time. Our modern world, with its global networks and interdependencies, is not so different. We too are vulnerable to the shocks of nature, to the upheavals of society, to the unseen forces that can unravel the threads of civilization. As we peer into the abyss of the past, let us not forget the lessons it offers. The late Bronze Age collapse serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of progress, of the perils of ignoring the balance that sustains us. It leaves us contemplating our own fate, our interconnected systems as precarious as those of the ancient world. Are we prepared to heed these ancient warnings, or are we destined to repeat history's most tragic cycles? The answer, perhaps, lies within us, as we navigate the complexities of our own era, ever mindful of the echoes of a world long lost to time. Imagine standing amidst the ruins of once great cities, now silent under layers of earth. The echoes of bustling marketplaces and the clang of bronze weapons are replaced by an eerie quiet. This is the world left behind by the late Bronze Age collapse. Within a span of just 50 years, the mighty Mycenaeans, the formidable Hittites, the prosperous city of Ugarit, and even the Egyptian New Kingdom, all these titans of the ancient Mediterranean, crumbled into obscurity. The palaces that once stood as symbols of power and prosperity were reduced to charred remnants. Trade routes, the arteries of ancient economies, were severed. Writing systems that chronicled the triumphs and tribulations of these civilizations were abandoned, leaving behind only fragments of a forgotten past. What could unravel such a tapestry of interconnected societies? 5 theories have been proposed, each a piece of a larger puzzle. Some point to drought, a relentless force of nature, parching the lands, desiccating crops, and driving desperate migrations. Others suggest earthquakes, the earth itself shifting, toppling fortified walls, and sowing chaos in its wake. Internal rebellions, too, have been implicated, the oppressed rising up, turning the strength of empires against their rulers. And then, there are the enigmatic sea peoples, whose origins and motives remain shrouded in mystery, appearing like specters to claim their place in history's annals. But perhaps the most compelling theory is not a single cause, but rather an intricate interplay of all these factors, a system's collapse, an interconnected world undone by its own interdependence. Picture a web of trade and diplomacy, each thread pulling taut as pressures mount. When one strand snaps, the entire network begins to unravel. The vertigo of this collapse lies in its modern resonance. This was not a simple barbarian invasion, but a systemic crisis, a cascading failure of complexity. It was a world brought down by the very ties that bound it together. And this, perhaps, is where the past reaches out to us across the millennia. Our world, too, is a delicate balance of interconnected systems, global trade, digital communications, financial networks. Each is robust yet fragile, a paradox of modern civilization. As we navigate our own era, we must ask ourselves, are we prepared for the unexpected, the unforeseeable shifts that could challenge our intricate web of interdependence? The late Bronze Age collapse serves as both a cautionary tale and a mirror, reflecting the vulnerabilities that lie beneath the surface of progress. As we gaze into this ancient abyss, we are left not with answers, but with profound questions about the resilience of our own civilization, urging us to contemplate the lessons of a world that died in 50 short years. In the shadowy silence of history, the late Bronze Age stands as a profound enigma. One by one, the great civilizations of the Mediterranean, once vibrant and thriving, fell into ruin. The Mycenaeans, the Hittites, the city of Ugarit, and even the mighty Egyptian New Kingdom, all vanished within a generation. What remains is a haunting archaeological silence, the kind that speaks louder than words. The palaces that once bustled with life and power were reduced to charred remnants. Trade routes, the lifeblood of these ancient cultures, were abruptly severed, leaving behind a world disconnected. And the scripts that once recorded the triumphs and treaties of kings faded into obscurity, their secrets lost to time. What could have caused this comprehensive collapse? Scholars have debated for centuries, and 5 theories have emerged from the dust of history. First, the specter of drought, an unforgiving climate shift that dried up the lands, leaving fields barren and empty. Second, the earth itself, in its restless slumber, may have awakened with violent tremors, earthquakes that shattered cities and sowed chaos. Third, the seeds of internal rebellion, discontent brewing within mighty empires, leading to uprisings that crumbled the established order. Fourth, The enigmatic sea peoples, marauding invaders whose origins remain shrouded in mystery, striking fear into the heart of every coastal kingdom. And finally, the concept of systems collapse, a complex web of interdependencies breaking down under its own weight, unable to withstand the pressures of the time. But what if there is no single cause to this cataclysm? What if the answer lies in the convergence of all these forces, a perfect storm of calamity that overwhelmed an interconnected world? The civilizations of the Late Bronze Age were bound together in a delicate dance of trade, diplomacy, and mutual reliance. When one thread unraveled, it set off a chain reaction, a domino effect that led to the downfall of them all. This was not a mere invasion by barbaric hordes. It was a systemic crisis, akin to those we fear in our modern age. Imagine the vertigo of such a world, a civilization seemingly invincible, undone not by a single blow, but by a multitude of converging threats. It is a sobering reminder of how fragile human endeavor truly is. The Late Bronze Age collapse is a mirror reflecting the vulnerabilities inherent in any interconnected system, ancient or modern. As we stand on the precipice of our own global challenges, we must heed the lessons of the past. Today, our world is more interconnected than ever before. Our economies, our technologies, our very lives are woven together in a tapestry of interdependence. What happens when one thread is pulled too tight, when one piece of the puzzle falls out of place? The collapse of the ancient world is a cautionary tale, a narrative that urges us to reflect on the resilience of our own civilization. It compels us to ask, are we truly prepared for the unexpected? For the shocks that may come from climate, conflict, or the unforeseen consequences of our own actions? As we unravel the mystery of the Late Bronze Age collapse, we are left with a sense of awe and unease. The parallels to our modern world are inescapable, the lessons as relevant as ever. It is a story that fascinates and unsettles, a reminder that history, in its cyclical nature, often has profound lessons to teach. In contemplating the demise of these ancient societies, we are called to consider the fragility of our own, urging us to build a world capable of withstanding the storms that may lie ahead. In the shadow of the Late Bronze Age, we find ourselves standing amidst the ruins of once great empires, where silence reigns supreme. The eerie quiet of shattered palaces, their walls blackened by fire, speaks volumes about a world that vanished in the blink of an eye. These were the Mycenaeans, the Hittites, the kingdom of Ugarit, and the Egyptian New Kingdom. Civilizations that had stood as pillars of the ancient world, now reduced to whispers in the dust. Archaeologists uncover layer upon layer of ash and rubble, each site telling a story of sudden and catastrophic decline. Trade routes that once bustled with merchants and goods from afar lay abandoned, paths overtaken by time. Writing systems that had recorded the glory and the minutiae of daily life were forgotten, their scripts left undeciphered, as if the collective memory of these cultures had been wiped clean. Theories abound as scholars attempt to unravel this enigma of history. Was it drought that desiccated the lands, leaving fields fallow and people desperate? Perhaps it was earthquakes, shaking the foundations of cities and faith alike, that brought the mighty to their knees. Internal rebellions may have sown chaos from within, as the disenfranchised rose against their rulers in a bid for change. Then there are the enigmatic sea peoples, whose origins and motives remain shrouded in mystery. They swept across the Mediterranean like a storm, leaving ruin in their wake. Was it conquest they sought, or were they themselves fleeing some unseen calamity, part of a larger narrative that we have yet to fully comprehend? And overarching all, the theory of systems collapse, a world so intricately interconnected that the failure of one part could bring the whole tumbling down. It was not a single cause that felled these civilizations, but rather a convergence of calamities. Each factor, significant in its own right, intertwined with the others, creating a cascade of failures from which there was no escape. Imagine a world where the fall of a trading partner ripples through economies, where environmental changes incite migration and conflict, where the very fabric of society begins to unravel. This was not a simple matter of barbarian hordes at the gates, but a systemic crisis of a magnitude that we, in our modern age, can scarcely fathom. Yet, the story of the Late Bronze Age collapse is not just a tale of endings. It is a cautionary narrative about the fragility of interconnected systems. As we look around our own world, the parallels are striking. We, too, live in a web of global interdependence, where a single disruption can send shockwaves across continents. Today, our global supply chains, financial systems, and political alliances are more tightly woven than ever before. The lessons of the ancient world whisper to us across millennia, urging us to reflect on the resilience of our societies. Can we withstand the storms of our own making? Or, like the civilizations before us, are we standing on the precipice of an unforeseen collapse? In contemplating the demise of the Late Bronze Age, we are left with an unsettling realization. The same forces that bring us together can just as easily tear us apart. This is the vertigo of history, a reminder of the delicate balance we must maintain to preserve what we have built. As we delve deeper into the past, we are reminded that the echoes of these ancient collapses still resonate, challenging us to heed their warnings and shape a future that can withstand the tests of time. In the silence of the archaeological record, we find a haunting testament to a world undone. The palaces of the Mycenaeans stand charred and empty, their grandeur reduced to ash. The Hittites, once mighty, are lost to time, their kingdoms crumbling into dust. Ugarit, a bustling hub of trade and culture, lies eerily still, its cuneiform tablets offering a final whisper of a vanished world. Even the Egyptian New Kingdom, the enduring symbol of ancient power, falters, its monuments now silent sentinels of a forgotten age. What caused this profound collapse? Theories abound, each offering a piece of the puzzle. Some point to a relentless drought, a merciless climate shift that parched the lands and withered the crops. Others speak of earthquakes, the earth itself shaking the foundations of these civilizations, leaving ruin in its wake. There are tales of internal rebellions, of the oppressed rising against their rulers, seeking justice or survival. And then, the enigmatic sea peoples, shadowy invaders who swept across the Mediterranean, leaving destruction in their path. But perhaps the most compelling answer is that all these forces converged in a perfect storm of calamity. This was not merely the fall of isolated kingdoms, but the unraveling of an interconnected world, a cascading systems collapse. The trade routes that once brought prosperity now became vectors of vulnerability. The intricate web of alliances and dependencies, once a strength, now a weakness exposed. This was not a simple narrative of conquest. It was a systemic crisis, a world too interlinked to withstand the simultaneous pressures of natural disasters, social upheaval, and external threats. Like a modern financial system teetering on the brink, the ancient world was undone by its own complexity, its interdependence becoming its downfall. As we unravel the threads of this ancient mystery, we are left with a vertiginous sense of our own place in history. Our modern world, with its global networks and intricate systems, mirrors that of the Late Bronze Age. We, too, are bound by the delicate threads of interconnection, reliant on the stability of a fragile equilibrium. In this reflection, we find both a warning and a call to action. The echoes of the past resonate with a chilling clarity, reminding us that the collapse of a civilization is not solely the result of external forces, but can be the consequence of its very success in building a complex, interdependent society. The lessons of the Late Bronze Age are clear. To thrive, we must learn to balance our connections and our vulnerabilities, to build systems resilient enough to withstand the tests of time. And so, as we stand on the precipice of our own uncertain future, the story of the late Bronze Age collapse serves as both a cautionary tale and a testament to human resilience. It compels us to look inward and outward, to imagine a future where we learn from the past and craft a world capable of enduring its trials. In the end, the silent ruins of the ancient world speak not just of collapse, but of the enduring quest for survival and renewal. A quest that is as relevant today as it was over 3 millennia ago. In the silent shadows of the Mediterranean, where once the pulse of the ancient world thrummed with life, a profound stillness now reigned. The echoes of bustling marketplaces, the clang of forging metal, the rituals of kings and commoners alike, all had vanished. Palace after palace lay in ruins, their charred remains whispering tales of sudden destruction. The lifeblood of trade routes, once arteries of prosperity and cultural exchange, had dried up, leaving behind a tapestry of desolation. The written word, a cornerstone of civilization, became a casualty of this enigmatic catastrophe. Linear B, cuneiform, and hieroglyphs, scripts that had chronicled the triumphs and tribulations of great empires, were forgotten by succeeding generations. What could have caused such a sweeping collapse, obliterating the Mycenaeans, the Hittites, Ugarit, and the Egyptian New Kingdom within the span of a single generation? Theories abound, each a piece of the puzzle. Some point to drought, a relentless climate shift that parched the lands and emptied granaries, breeding famine and desperation. Others suggest the earth itself betrayed these ancient peoples, as earthquakes shattered cities and sowed chaos in their wake. Then there were internal rebellions, the discontent simmering under the weight of oppressive regimes finally boiling over in revolt. The specter of the Sea Peoples looms large in the annals of history, their origins shrouded in mystery. Were they marauding invaders or desperate refugees, driven by the same catastrophes that toppled the civilizations they encountered? Their swift and brutal incursions left a trail of devastation, yet they too were part of a larger, interconnected drama. And so, we arrive at the theory of systems collapse, a fragile web of interdependence that crumbled under its own weight. This was not merely a series of isolated events, but a cascading failure, where the fall of one civilization reverberated through the interconnected world like a discordant symphony. The collapse was systemic, a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in complex societies. In the end, it was all of these forces, intertwined and inseparable, that conspired to bring about the late Bronze Age collapse. It was not a barbarian invasion, but something more insidious, akin to a modern systemic crisis. The vertigo of this realization is profound, for it speaks to the fragility of interconnected systems, both ancient and contemporary. As we gaze upon the ruins, we are drawn to reflect on our own world, a world where global systems of trade, communication, and governance are woven together more tightly than ever before. The lessons of the past echo through the ages, a haunting reminder that our civilization, too, is susceptible to the invisible threads that bind us. In contemplating the late Bronze Age collapse, we are left both unsettled and fascinated. The specter of collapse looms over our own tightly coupled systems, urging us to heed the warnings etched in the stones of forgotten cities. It is a call to resilience, to foresight, and to the enduring quest for survival and renewal. As we peer into the shadows of history, we are reminded that the fate of our world lies not in the stars, but in our own hands. The late Bronze Age collapse remains one of the greatest mysteries of our ancient past, a haunting enigma where entire civilizations vanished almost overnight. Imagine the eerie silence that follows, palaces reduced to charred ruins, bustling trade routes rendered desolate, and the once vibrant script of a thriving society fading into oblivion. As we delve into this historical void, we're confronted by the stark reality of a world unraveling in less than 50 years. In this ancient theater of collapse, the Mycenaeans, the Hittites, the city of Ugarit, and even the mighty Egyptian New Kingdom succumbed to an unseen force. It was a cascade of devastation, leaving behind only whispers of what was. 5 theories vie for dominance in explaining this downfall, each one a piece of a larger, more complex puzzle. The first theory speaks of drought, a relentless and unforgiving force that withers the land and starves the people. Archaeological evidence reveals years of reduced rainfall, weaving a narrative of scarcity and desperation. Crops failed, and famine tightened its grip, pushing societies to their breaking points. Then come the earthquakes, their tremors echoing through the annals of history. Entire cities crumbled under nature's wrath, their stone walls no match for the earth's fury. These seismic upheavals shattered not only buildings, but also the very foundation of social order. Internal rebellions add yet another dimension, discontent bubbling over into chaos, the oppressed rising against their rulers, the fabric of loyalty and governance torn apart by insurrection. These uprisings were as inevitable as they were destructive, a fiery flashpoint in the darkest hours of decline. And then there are the mysterious sea peoples, enigmatic marauders emerging from the depths of the Mediterranean. They swept across the lands with a ferocity that left historians both intrigued and perplexed. Were they invaders, or refugees driven by the same crises they inflicted upon others? Their role remains a tantalizing enigma, a shadowy force that blurred the lines between cause and effect. Yet perhaps the most compelling theory of all is systems collapse, an intricate web of interdependence undone by its own complexity. The very connectivity that fueled the prosperity of the Late Bronze Age became its Achilles heel. Trade networks, once vibrant arteries of wealth and culture, severed like fragile threads under too much strain. When one pillar fell, it triggered a chain reaction that pulled down empires. In truth, no single theory holds the entire answer. This was not merely a barbarian invasion. It was a multifaceted, systemic crisis, a perfect storm of factors converging on a fragile, interconnected world. It is a vertiginous reminder that complexity can breed vulnerability, and that the collapse of one can be the collapse of all. As we stand at the precipice of understanding, we draw uncomfortable parallels with our own age. Today, our global systems are more intricate and interconnected than ever before. We rely on the smooth operation of international networks for everything from food to finance. Yet, like the civilizations of the Late Bronze Age, this very interdependence can become a double-edged sword. The lessons etched into the silent stones of those ancient ruins urge us to prepare for the unforeseen. They compel us to strengthen resilience and adaptability, to nurture foresight as the guiding light through the uncertainties of our own time. For the specter of collapse is not confined to history. It is a timeless reminder that the fate of civilizations, ancient or modern, lies not in the stars, but in the choices we make today. As we leave the shadows of the past, we find ourselves both unsettled and fascinated, standing on the edge of understanding with a lingering question. Will we heed the warnings of history, or will we too become echoes in the archaeological silence of tomorrow?